When I told HR my supervisor had been taking credit for my projects, they called a meeting but only to humiliate me. He grinned and said, "You're just a bitter nobody who can't accept that you're average." Then he slid a termination letter across the table. I walked out silent. But I had a backup drive. And I sent it somewhere he'll never expect. My name's Aaron. I'm 38 years old, and until a few months ago, I worked as a software analyst for a mid-sized tech firm in St. Louis. I'm not flashy. I don't network well. I show up early, I do the work, and I go home. That's always been enough for me. At least it used to be. The man who ruined that simplicity was my supervisor, Greg Carson. Tall, square-jawed, perfect teeth college football guy, always talking loud in meetings and cracking those fake jokes that somehow still made people laugh. Greg didn't know the first thing about writing code, but he had charm. He was the kind of guy who could fail upward and not even notice. I met him when I transferred from the Oklahoma City office to St. Louis. Within 2 weeks, he was slapping my back in front of other managers and calling me the quiet genius, but behind closed doors he started dropping lines like, "Hey man, don't mind if I loop in a few ideas from your report into my deck for tomorrow's briefing, yeah?" At first, I didn't mind. I thought we were a team. That was my first mistake. See, over time, my name stopped showing up on things. Projects I spent weeks building got presented by him. He'd tweak a couple of visuals, rehearse my talking points, and parade it around as his own. The first time it happened, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. The second time, I started keeping notes. By the fourth time, I made sure to back up everything. I wasn't naive. I knew office politics was a game. But I believed that work, real work, would speak for itself. I kept telling myself, people know who's doing the heavy lifting. I was wrong. When our division landed the Baxter account, a multi-million-dollar contract, it was my prototype that impressed them. I spent nights and weekends perfecting the analytics tools for that project. Greg knew it. So did the rest of our team. He couldn't even open half the scripts I wrote without help. But when the final presentation came, he stood at that podium in front of the Baxter reps with my dashboard behind him, smiling like he coded it in his sleep. He didn't mention me once. That was the breaking point. I decided to go to HR. I didn't want drama. I didn't want his job. I just wanted credit for my work. My only ask was that future projects include proper attribution and that Greg stop presenting my work as his own. I submitted a full report, email trails, version control history, timestamps, project documentation, everything. A week later, I was called into a follow-up meeting with HR and Greg. I thought this was the first step to resolving things. When I stepped into the room and saw Greg smirking with his arms folded, I knew I'd been played. "Take a seat, Aaron," said Brenda, the HR manager, with a practiced smile. She slid a folder across the table. Greg leaned forward. "We've reviewed your claims," he said. "And frankly, they read like the diary of someone who can't accept their own mediocrity." He said that out loud, with HR in the room. Then he pulled out a termination letter and laid it flat on the table. "You're not a team player," Brenda added. "Your attitudes become disruptive. And after reviewing your emails and internal messages, we've decided it's best you part ways with the company." I sat there frozen. Greg grinned. "You're just a bitter nobody who can't accept that you're average." I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I picked up my backpack, nodded once, and walked out. They thought that was the end of it. But I had a backup drive. Every file. Every commit. Every line of code. Even audio from a few private meetings where Greg asked me to clean up his mistakes before deadlines. I'd saved it all, on an encrypted drive I kept in my desk drawer at home. And I knew exactly where to send it. But I didn't go public. Not yet. That would have been too easy. Instead, I reached out to Baxter directly. I'd been in one meeting with their CTO, Matt Howard, a sharp, no BS kind of guy in his 50s. During that call, I remember him asking a few technical questions Greg completely deflected. I'd stepped in and answered them, and Matt had nodded slowly, like he knew who was actually doing the work. I tracked down his assistant's email and wrote a message, formal, respectful, and direct. I told him I had information he'd want to see about the integrity of the platform they were investing in. I didn't even mention Greg by name. I just attached a zipped folder labeled Baxter Project, Original Author Archive. Then I waited. It took 2 days. Then my phone rang. Not my cell. My house phone. The landline I barely used. "Aaron? This is Matt Howard." He'd gotten my number from the metadata of an internal contact sheet buried in the archive files. "I've reviewed what you sent. Can you come to our Chicago office this Friday?" "Sure," I said, trying to sound calm, but my hands were shaking. "Good," he said. "We have a lot to talk about." That Friday, I drove the 5 hours to Baxter HQ. No hotel, no fancy car. I took my rusty '09 Camry and wore the same suit I'd bought for my cousin's wedding. The meeting wasn't with just Matt. It included 2 other execs and a woman from legal. They didn't waste time. "We believe you," Matt said. "And we're not interested in working with dishonest partners." They offered me a contract on the spot. They wanted me to lead the implementation of the same platform I'd built under Greg, only this time under my name. Full credit. Full compensation. A clean slate. I signed it. Then things started to unravel back in St. Louis. Greg tried to bluff. He said I was a disgruntled ex-employee trying to extort a client. But Baxter responded publicly. They made an announcement cutting ties with my old firm, citing internal concerns about integrity and authorship. Greg's name didn't show up, but everyone knew. 3 days later, I got a message on LinkedIn from a junior dev I used to mentor. One line, he cleared out his office. "HR is saying it was mutual. No one's buying it." I thought I'd feel satisfied. But that wasn't even close to the end. Because I hadn't told him what I really did yet. And the drive? That wasn't the only place I sent it. After Baxter hired me, I relocated to Chicago. They covered everything: moving truck, relocation bonus, even 3 months in a corporate apartment. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not just as a worker, but as someone who mattered. I didn't brag. I didn't post about it. I just kept my head down and worked. But back in St. Louis, the story was spreading fast. Greg didn't go quietly. He tried to spin it, said he left to pursue bigger opportunities. He even told some people he was headhunted by Amazon. But word travels fast in our industry. Developers talk. Emails leak. LinkedIn tells you who gets hired where. Greg wasn't working anywhere. A few weeks after I started at Baxter, I got a strange email. No subject line. No name. Just one sentence: "He's blaming you for ruining his life." I didn't reply. I knew exactly who sent it. There was only one person with access to both our inboxes during my final weeks at the firm: Delia. She was an office assistant, barely 23 and sharp as hell. We used to chat over lunch about how full of it Greg was. She saw everything, but she was quiet about it. Smart girl. A few days later, I got a package at the apartment. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a post-it note: "You're not the only one who kept receipts." Delia had been recording him too. What was on that USB made my stomach turn. Greg had been using company funds to run side consulting gigs. He billed clients using the firm's name, then pocketed the cash by funneling it through a fake LLC registered under a relative's name. He used our tools, my code, our data, without anyone's approval. There were emails, invoices, even Slack messages where he bragged to someone, "If this company ever folds, I've got a plan B printing money on the side." That changed everything. I could have buried him with this. Hell, I could have gone to the IRS or our old firm's board of directors. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I printed copies of every single document and mailed them, anonymously, to 3 places: the company's legal department, their CFO's office, and the State Department of Revenue. Then I waited. 3 weeks later, I got a text from another former coworker, Drew. "Dude, Greg's being investigated. Full audit. They think he stole 6 figures." My phone started buzzing daily. People I hadn't spoken to in months suddenly wanted to talk. "You were right. I always knew something was off." He was a jerk to everyone. But I didn't answer. I didn't say a word. Then something strange happened. I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from Greg's wife. "Aaron, I know we don't know each other, but Greg's falling apart. I think he's drinking again. He blames you for everything. He said you ruined his career. I thought you should know." That hit me harder than I expected. I never knew he had a drinking problem. Still, I didn't feel bad. Not really. Just unsettled. Then came the part one never planned for. One night, while working late in the Baxter offices, I got a call from a Chicago area code. "Aaron, this is Detective Kerrigan from the Financial Crimes Unit. We received some anonymous materials that we believe you may have additional context on. Mind coming in to answer a few questions?" My stomach sank. I hadn't done anything wrong, but I'd stirred up something big. I showed up the next morning. Brought everything. Dates, files, backup logs, even copies of the post-it note and the envelope. I told the truth, every piece of it. They asked me to write a statement. I did. 10 pages long. At the end, Kerrigan looked me dead in the eye. "This isn't just corporate theft," he said. "This looks like tax fraud, wire fraud, and potentially money laundering. You just blew open something big. That night, I got home and stared at the ceiling for hours. I wasn't scared. I was just realizing how far this had all gone. Greg didn't just take credit for my work. He gambled everything on using me as his workhorse while he built a secret life, and I had just lit the fuse that would destroy it all. What I didn't know yet was who else would get burned. Because Greg's secrets weren't just about work. And the fallout wasn't done yet. The investigation into Greg blew wide open. Over the next few weeks, I kept my head down and worked. But the fallout reached further than I expected. It turned out Greg's little side business had pulled in more than $400,000 over 3 years. Money that should have gone to our company or to taxes. Some of it was through shell contracts. Others were shady licensing deals where he used my code, but signed fake partnership agreements to cover his tracks. Baxter's legal team stayed in touch with me. They made it clear, I was in the clear. I hadn't broken any laws. In fact, my backup drive and Delia's files were part of the reason the IRS took it seriously. Then came the subpoenas. Greg was arrested 2 months after my statement. He was pulled from his car in a supermarket parking lot. There's a picture online. You can see his face, shocked, wearing a rumpled polo shirt and handcuffs. His lawyer tried to say it was a witch hunt driven by jealousy. No one bought it. His wife filed for divorce the same week. I never talked to her again, but someone sent me the court papers. She got the house. Full custody of their 2 kids. In the filings, she wrote, I had no idea the man I married was capable of so much deceit. Neither did I. But that wasn't the part that stuck with me. One day, about 5 months after I started at Baxter, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was just 1 page. You didn't have to do all that. You could have just moved on. But you wanted to bury me. Congrats. You got what you wanted. I lost everything. You win. It was signed, Greg. I sat there holding that paper for a long time. I didn't feel like I'd won. I'd gotten justice. I'd cleared my name. I'd even gotten a better job out of it. But the bitterness in that letter, it wasn't fake. That was real pain. And it shook me. For months, I wrestled with it. I saw a therapist, talked through it. Because even though I was the victim, even though Greg had taken so much from me, the weight of destroying someone's life, even someone who tried to ruin mine, was heavier than I expected. The truth is, revenge doesn't feel clean. It doesn't feel triumphant. It feels necessary. But it also leaves a scar. Greg was sentenced to 6 years. He'll serve maybe 3 if he behaves. His name is ruined in the industry. He can't even get a job at a startup now. I heard through someone that he's working under the table doing warehouse shifts. Delia, the office assistant who helped me, I referred her to Baxter's HR. She's now in their compliance department. Doing well. We still get lunch once a month. Me? I'm okay. I still live in Chicago. I work a lot. I try to be a good manager, because now I am the supervisor. And I make sure my team always gets the credit they earn. I learned something from all this. Not just that some people are liars. Not just that justice takes time. But that silence can be power. I never screamed. I never begged. I just backed up my work. I walked out. And I waited. And in the end, Greg destroyed himself, because I gave him just enough rope to hang with. I didn't ruin his life. I just stopped covering for the man who did.